Hello everyone, I'm Jack Fisher and welcome to my world. And I want that world to be full of meaningful romance. I've said before that I'm a big romance fan, and I mean it. It really doesn't matter if it's in TV, movies, comics, video games, or even insurance commercials. I think love is a beautiful thing. It's this universal passion that we all pursue and cherish to some extent. Now, I'm a straight man, and I freely admit that I am an unapologetic romantic. Many of my favorite comics, movies, and TV shows feature major romantic subplots. I feel like they help make a story more intimate and dramatic. And when done right, they can have a special impact that transcends the story itself. Then there are love triangles. And most love triangles suck. They are to romance what tornadoes are to trailer parks, bringing destruction, distress, and frustration wherever they go. We all know the basics of love triangles. He loves her, she loves somebody else, but that someone else doesn't love them back, so somebody's heart gets broken. Then, to salvage some semblance of romance, somebody kisses someone else in what feels like an overdue moment, but we're still left with an ending that satisfies some, outrages others, and confounds many. It's a formula with many variations, none of which make it any less infuriating. In fact, love triangles by their nature have to be complicated. They have to disrupt so many of the romantic dynamics in play, turning all these acts of affection and passion into a struggle, and not in a good way. And despite all those complications, love triangles are one of the oldest, most predictable tactics in all romantic stories. It's right up there with the classic will they or won't they trope that gets dragged out for way too long. But at least that story keeps the romance focused. Love triangles can only make things more chaotic. Now, as a longtime lover of romance, I can't ignore their prevalence or their effect. So I want to take a moment to talk about them. And yes, that will include plenty of ranting and tirades, but I promise I'll try and make a larger point here. Now, first off, let me just acknowledge that love triangles have their place in pop culture. I understand that they're part of a tried and true formula for injecting drama into a romantic subplot. By their nature, love triangles tap into a powerful set of emotions in all of us. It's because a lot of us know what it feels like to see someone you love fall for someone else. It's heartbreaking. And romance, both real and fictional, often involves a lot of heartbreak. That being said, love triangles often bring out a more frustrating set of emotions. And given how fiction often seeks to evoke certain emotions, that's what I'm going to focus on. I'll save the real-life love triangles for another video. Now, as anyone who hasn't slept through English class can attest, love triangles have been part of many iconic stories. The most famous was probably the one that played out in the legends of King Arthur with Arthur, Guinevere, and Sir Lancelot. In terms of structure, it's pretty basic. Arthur clearly loves Guinevere and she loves him too, but she also has feelings for Lancelot. And throughout Arthurian lore, it's a frequent source of drama that supplements the chivalrous battles and holy quests. But for most of the story, it only plays a minor role, which keeps the love triangle from derailing things too much. But towards the end, that love triangle ends up being an important component to the larger mythos. You could even make the case that the story couldn't be as dramatic as it was without that love triangle. That still didn't make it any less frustrating for romance fans, but it does highlight just how disruptive a love triangle can be for the plot of a story. And it's very difficult to effectively use that disruption to improve the story. And even since the days of King Arthur, very few stories have succeeded. Hell, flash forward 800 years, throw in reality TV, superhero media, and vampires, and the trends of love triangles have only gotten worse. These days, love triangles tend to feel overdone and overused. They're a contrived, predictable trope that has become more of an annoyance than a plot device. At best, it's just shallow melodrama. But at its worst, love triangles completely derail the larger story that's supposed to be unfolding. See the first 3 X-Men movies with Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Wolverine, which I still contend is the worst love triangle of all time, bar none. But you can also see it play out in movies like The Hunger Games, or books like Twilight, and TV shows like True Blood or Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now, I won't get into the specifics of how love triangles undermine those particular stories, but on the whole, they all had a similar cumulative effect. In essence, The love triangle narrowed the romantic subplot rather than expanded it. It also dehumanized every character involved. That's because it immediately ascribed certain roles to certain characters that limited their development. You see, when someone's sole purpose is defined by who they want to hook up with and who is standing in their way, it often overrides every other trait of that character. Suddenly, winning over someone's heart becomes their primary motivation in life, and opposing whoever is in their way often becomes the secondary motivation. Anything beyond that is basically an afterthought. Characters like Spike in Buffy the Vampire Slayer dedicated 90% of their energy towards winning someone else's heart. It undercut a lot of the character growth he underwent throughout the story, having gone from tenacious enemy to close friend. But once the love triangle with Angel entered the mix, the rest of his character development became defined by that. And on top of that, it reduced Buffy, the star of the show mind you, into a prize to be won. The same thing happens to Jean Grey in the X-Men movies. It happened to Sookie Stackhouse in True Blood. And it even happened to Katniss Everdeen to some extent. Characters either become objects of affection or they become defined by their affections. Their personality, their agency, and their greater ambitions completely fall to the wayside. And in the end, even when someone does win the heart of whomever they love, it basically feels like they won a contest. And seriously, what's romantic about that? So given all these toxic effects, why do love triangles persist? As I said earlier, they do have a simple impact. They tap into a set of basic emotions that are fairly universal across cultures. Love, jealousy, longing, and all the melodrama that comes with it. Those can all be integral parts of a good love story, but even with that appeal in mind, we should still ask a relevant question. Why do these stories about love triangles have to be so god-awful? The biggest problem, in my opinion, stems from something that seems to be ingrained in our culture to some extent. When we tell love stories, we have this ideal in mind. One person finds their soulmate. That soulmate is 100% in love with them and returns 100% of their affections. Now, that's all well and good, and many of us have a soft spot for that kind of fluffy romance. But it's that same affinity that makes love triangles so untenable. In many stories, love triangles are often used as an obstacle, a wedge designed to prevent two star-crossed lovers from coming together. Now, it can still make for a good story, but it almost always comes at the expense of another character along the way. Sometimes that works because one of the characters in question is a total asshole. There was no effort whatsoever to put Biff Tannen in Back to the Future on equal footing with George McFly. He's supposed to be an asshole. He's supposed to lose out. He is not someone you root for to get the girl. But even if we want every character within a love triangle to have more personality than Biff Tannen, that can still be a problem. The very nature of love triangles essentially guarantees that one character gets screwed over in the end. Someone is going to have their heart broken. Someone is going to come off as the loser and the bad guy. And it's only in a handful of cases like Back to the Future where that works out in a satisfying way. But if the person that gets screwed over is Biff Tannen, then that's okay. But in most other cases, it turns another character into a sacrificial lamb. And once that person is rejected, they tend to have little impact on the story moving forward. Even if they handle the heartbreak well, they basically become a non-factor. Hell, in hindsight, everything they did to try to win someone over just ended up being pointless. They ultimately end up with nothing, or even less than that. Again, just see what happened to Cyclops in the X-Men movies. I know I keep referencing those movies, but seriously, I challenge anyone to find a worse love triangle than that. Beyond all the contrived melodrama, I find that whole approach that love triangles take very troubling, because it throws away opportunities to create quality characters. It also ensures the character that loses in a love triangle is going to be flat, boring, and dull. They have to be in order for the story to feel satisfying in the end. If it's a male character who loses out, he's often some sort of bad boy, dirty Harry wannabe who just needs one last nudge to becoming a full-blown asshole. And if it's a female character, she's usually some sort of mean girl-style uber bitch who often undergoes an emotional breakdown to nullify whatever sympathy she had left. And as a result, the outcome of the love triangle tends to be predictable. Before it even has a chance to get sexy or passionate, we, the audience, usually have a good idea of how it'll play out. The nice guy slash nice girl is going to win. The asshole slash uptight jerk slash bland arm candy is going to lose. And even when it tries to convey a sense of justice and catharsis, it still lacks in emotional depth. Because, beyond just winning each other over in the battle of a love triangle, what other reason do these two characters have to be together? Just winning out in a love triangle is not enough. Honestly, how many romances that emerge from a love triangle seem like something that can last beyond the credits? There really aren't that many, and even the ones with decent chemistry come off as lacking depth or development. And despite all these negative effects, I don't see love triangles going away anytime soon. They're just too easy a crutch to fall back on. Need some drama? Throw in a love triangle. It's like a cheat code, but one that causes lots of glitches. But that doesn't mean love triangles always have to be bad. I believe there is a way to make love triangles less damaging. But how do we go about that? Well, I have a few ideas, but I'm hardly an expert. I'm just a romance fan who's consumed way more romance than most straight men ever will. But here's what I've come to learn about romance after reading through so many awful love triangles. If a love triangle is going to be part of a story, it has to make sure that all those involved have some agency. Doesn't have to be much, it just has to ensure that everyone involved is in a position to make their own choices. And on top of that, there has to be chemistry. Unless there's a Biff Tannen type involved, all sides of a love triangle should have genuine romantic chemistry. That means these characters have to complement each other on some levels. They have to make each other better people. I feel like that's what helped make the love triangles in Buffy the Vampire Slayer feel somewhat tenable. It also helps make characters like Spike better in the long run, even if it did take precedent over some other aspects of his growth. And most importantly, a love triangle cannot reduce characters to basic roles. Even in a pure romance story, if a character's most defining trait is loving someone else who doesn't love them back, then they're just not that interesting a character to begin with. They need to have something else that helps them stand out. Something other than romance that allows them to contribute meaningfully to the plot. It can be done, and it has been done before. Like I said, even the Arthurian legends managed to prove that centuries ago. I sincerely hope that the overall approach to love triangles improves considerably, because as it stands, their sole function is to completely derail a romantic subplot. Yes, it's still an easy way to stir drama, but a bad love triangle is the easiest way to turn quality characters into trophies/obstacles. It turns women into prizes to be won, men into powerless tools of their passions, and everyone else involved into overly emotional vampires. And I think we can do better than that. For the sake of love and romance, we must do better. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for joining me in my world. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, take care and stay safe.